Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is another Sunday video, and in today's video I thought we can take a look at Seaport, which is the name of the NFT contract for the marketplace Opensea. So Opensea's contract is called Seaport, and the latest Seaport version is Seaport 1.6. So I thought I'd give an overview of what is Seaport, what does the event look like, and how can we sort of create a minimum viable query to look at the Seaport sales essentially. Okay, so how do you look at Seaport? Well, you can just search on Etherscan Seaport. You can also just look at the docs, but you can look up Seaport 1.6, and the 1.6 address should show up on Etherscan. And if you click onto it, you can see a bunch of different addresses. A bunch of different transactions. As is the case of all NFTs, there are a couple of cases you need to think about when you're thinking about NFTs, right? So maybe sidetracking a little bit. There are a few, I would say, buckets of categories. The first category is the NFT type, or the token standard, right? You have ERC 721s and you have ERC 1155s, right? So how does the protocol handle these two standards? Fun fact: Blur does not handle 1155s. They said they said they've been working on a contract to handle 1155 since forever, but it's still not out. And then, so that's one, token standard. Maybe I should just write down, right, token standard. And then two is the payment method. So does it accept native tokens? So in this case, does it accept native ETH? Else, is it only WEF, right? Can there be USDC or other payment tokens? And how are they represented in the data? And then I think maybe the final one would be handling of multi purchases. So how does the protocol handle someone buying multiple NFTs, right? So can a single event contain multi NFT purchases? So can a single event log, which is another way to say, can the protocol handle someone buying multiple NFTs in one transaction, or do they require them to purchase the NFTs one at a time? What about accepting an offer, right? Can a seller accept multiple offers at the same time across different NFTs that they listed? Can someone make a collection-wide offer to any NFTs in the particular collection? So all those, so those are the sort of like three categories you need to think of, and oftentimes it's the combination of the three, right? So if I'm buying a ERC 721, can I buy ERC 721 and 1155s in a single event, right? So those so the categories affect each other almost, and yeah, just these are the things you need to think about. Okay, back to Seaport. So Seaport, I forgot what version, maybe 1.4 or 1.5. It starts to introduce a new event. So all this while, there's only one event emitted, which is the order fulfilled event. Okay, and I'll talk about what order fulfilled is, but I want to share the new event that Seaport started to emit, a few versions back. It's called Order Match. If I can find it, there you go, Orders Match. Okay, so there are basically just two events you need to look at, and let's first go through what Order Fulfill is. So Order Fulfill is is the event that Seaport emits to show you the order from the perspective of someone. So in this case, it's either the perspective of the offerer or the perspective of the recipient. So let's say I'm the offerer. In this case, I am selling an item, so I list it for a certain price. So that is my offer, and then my consideration is what would I willing to give up the thing that I'm offering for in exchange for something, right? So what the things that I'm okay with exchanging it for will be in the consideration section. I also forgot to mention that when I say consideration, in order for field event, there are two big portions, which is the offer and also the consideration. So that's what I meant when I say consideration. Another thing about Seaport is that Seaport is also a generalized trading mechanism. So technically, you can set up listings and offers where it's just trades between two NFTs, or let's say I have a Bored Ape and I want to trade it for your Azuki plus two Azukis plus something else. Those sort of trades are possible on Seaport actually, and there's actually a feature to do that on the UI itself, although not many people do. And so most sales are just direct buying and selling with currencies. Okay, so just a quick fun fact. All right, so that's order fulfilled. What is order match? Now go back to the point earlier where I say Seaport is sort of like an order, like a matching, like a trade system. They also introduced this function to match multiple offers together. So let's say Alice puts up an NFT at floor price for sale, and then Bob puts up his NFT at floor price for sale, and then this new person called, I don't know, Catherine, she comes in, tells Seaport, hey, I am willing to pay X amount for any two NFTs in this particular collection that Alice and Bob just listed the NFTs in. And so Seaport is able to match all three orders together and come out with one transaction. And so that's what the orders match event is for. It is an event that's emitted whenever these sort of orders are sort of matched together. Yeah. Okay, I think that's enough intro for Seaport. Let's dive into the data. The reason why it's part one, because I think Seaport is kind of big, and so I'm just going to cover what I think is good enough for part one, and then we'll see if we need a part two or part three. Okay, I've got some sample transactions here already written out, and all of these transactions are just random transactions that I get from Etherscan just by clicking and then getting random transactions. But all these sort of differ from each other. And so let's look at the first one, this 720 transaction. So this address, OXABC, wow, look at this address, ABCD. Wow, this is a pretty nice address. Right, ABCD bought, the reason why we know they bought, because look at the NFT recipient, it's the same address. So they are the buyer because they received the NFT. So they bought this NFT from this seller. How do you know it's a seller? Because they're the ones that they're the address in which the NFT is transferred from. So they're the seller. And so another way you can tell is that look at the amount of ETH transferred, or the amount of currencies that are transferred. The seller always gets the highest portion, right, the bulk of the sale. So the bulk of the sale goes to this address, which is the address where the NFT transfers from. So this is the seller, this is the seller, okay? And then some amount of fees go to Opensea's fee collection address. Right, so in summary, this address ABCD bought this NFT with ETH, right? Native token ETH. Okay, so this is one example, and then look at event logs. There's only one event called order fulfilled. This is the NFT transfer event, right? But there's only one order fulfilled event. Another transaction, this buyer, or in this case, this is a seller. Why is a seller? Because it's the address in which the NFT is transferred from. See how this is the same as this. And so the seller accepts an offer that is placed onto their NFT listing. And so they get, this is the seller, they receive the full amount, and the full amount then is used to pay the fees and some royalty fees. But they get a bulk of the amount, right? So we have a buying with native ETH, and then one is a seller accepting a bid of WEF. And then if we look at the event logs, we see one order fulfilled event. Okay. And this looks like a purchase of multiple NFTs, right? 5 NFTs. And there are 5. So 5 order fulfilled, which means, and are there any orders matched? Let's look. Nope. Okay, so which means each order fulfilled is a single, and it represents a single NFT, right? In this particular case. So we sort of covered, this single event, but we still need to find example transactions where a single event contains multiple NFT sales. But yeah, let's look at these first 2 transactions for now, right? So one is the native ETH purchase, and one is the seller accepting a bid. So I'm gonna say, so this is the decoder event logs table. This is the decoder log. You see a consideration and an offer. So again, Opensea or Seaport contains, or the event from Seaport, order fulfilled event, has these 2 big sections, the consideration section and also the offer section. Okay, so I think I'm going to write out the offerer here. So decoder log offerer, and then decoder log or the hash, which should come in handy when we do order match next time, but in this case not really. And I just want the offerer pulled out, so that's why I put it here. Okay, so select from raw where tx hash in. Now the reason I do this is because I just want to look at these 2 transactions to show you guys. Okay, what do we need? I think that's all we need. Okay, yeah, let's run this query. Okay. All right, so let's first look at this. So let's label the queries, or label the transactions. This is buy with native ETH, seller accepts offer. All right. Okay, so where's the transaction? Okay, the first transaction is buyer buys with native ETH. Right, buyer buys with native ETH. What we were trying to say, what observations can we gather from this first event? So let's look at offerer. Offerer is OXEA0, which is the seller. So for cases where, so this tells us for cases where the buyer buys directly off of a listing, the offerer or the offer refers to the listing itself. Okay, so I kind of want to separate these two where, alright, maybe I'll get into the other one first. Okay, so the other one is offerer is 6AA, and 6AA is the buyer in this case, right? Contrast this with the first transaction where the offerer is the seller and now the offerer is the buyer, right? Why is that the case? Because the first case, the buyer buys off of a listing, right? So buyer buys from listing, which means the listing came first, right? The listing came first, and the listing is the offer from the seller. So listing is the offer, and the buyer accepts the offer, basically, like buys the offer, right? What is being offered. Buyer buys what is being offered. In this case, the listing, the NFT listing is the offer, and then the buyer buys what is being offered. So the buyer buys the NFT listing. In the second example, seller accepts a bid, right? So now instead of the NFT being the offer, the bid is the offer, right? The bid of how much WEF? 0.6 WEF is the offer, and the seller accepts the offer, basically, right? Yeah, I don't know how to say this. I don't know how to make it seem clearer, but you have two distinct scenarios here, where one case you buy off an existing listing, and the other case being the seller accepts a bid. Now you can argue that the seller accepts a bid, but the bid came from the bid is on the listing, right? So there's like sort of two layers. But in this case, this is just sort of how Seaport does things. Just take the first layer, right? Or the most immediate layer. Buyer buys some listing, seller accepts a bid, right? So these two are the two scenarios. And another thing we can see is that if we look through the event, there is like amount, identifier, item type, recipient token. And this is true for everything in consideration and also in offer. So what does this mean? So amount is, I guess it makes sense to just first tell you what item type is. So item type here is a way for Seaport to identify what exactly is the thing, right? And the reason why they use item type is because these traits can be generalized, right? And so that's why they want to make it as generic as possible. And how they accommodate for the different types of items is by using numbers. So item type, let me write it here. Item type 0 is native ETH. 1 is ERC20. So it could be WEF, USDC, right? So on and so forth. 2 is ERC721, which is NFT. 3 is ERC955. And then there's also 4 and 5, which are like ERC721 with some terms, right? I don't know, I forgot. But the most common one that you encounter is this 4, right? 0, 1, 2, 3. And because all the additional NFT ones are 2 and above, you can sort of just assume everything above 2 is an NFT. Okay, but this 4 is the important one, and so I'll just remove this thing. So again, 0 native ETH, 1 is in ERC20, 2 is ERC721, and 3 is 1155. Okay, So that's item type. What is identifier? Identifier is only relevant for NFTs. So let's see here is item type 2. Item type 2 is ERC721, and so the identifier for ERC721 is the token ID. And if we look at here, where item type 0, which means it's native ETH, identifier is 0 because identifier doesn't apply to native ETH. So identifier only applicable for NFTs, and it is token IDs basically. And then we have amount. Amount is how many based on the item type. Okay, so let's say the item type is 0. It means how much ETH. Item type is 1. How much of the ERC20? If the item type is 2 or 3, if it's 2, it's I think it's 1, I believe. Yeah, it's 1. If it's 2, the amount just means quantity, like how many of the NFT. And because ERC721s are unique, amount will always be 1. And for 1155s, the amount is the 1155 value, the quantity, like how many copies of that token ID. So let me just write down, right? Amount means how much of ETH or rep ETH. For ERC721s, always 1 because it's the quantity of NFTs. And then for 3 is the number of copies of 1155, right? So, and then recipient would be the address of the address that receives this amount on this token, and token is the token address. And so what we see here for native ETH, token address is written as like a bunch of zeros. So this denotes, or this represents native ETH. Okay, so now that we sort of see two variations or two scenarios, I think we should create sort of two different CTEs, right, to represent these two scenarios. And the reason how we differentiate these two is because we found out that in the offer, what is the item type, right? If the item type is an NFT, which is 2 or more, it means that the offerer is which is the seller putting a listing, and then the buyer accepts the offer or buys off of the listing. Okay, and so I'm going to put a new column here called decoded log. I'll just move it here. Decoded log offer 0, because it's an array. So the first element in the offer tuple, and then item type. Let's call it int as offer item type. Right, simple as that. And so if this is 0 or 1, if this is 2 or more, buyer buys off of listing. Simple as that. Else seller accepts an offer. Okay, so let's try to write that down. I am going to comment out all the other transactions that I'm not using, which is this and also this. Yep. Okay, so N92 and 720. Oh, yeah, those are the two. So let's see. Let's call it fulfill let's call one as like buy, and the other one is offer accepted, or like OA, right? So buy means buyer buys off of an existing listing. And so I don't need this anymore. I can just use where offer item type more than equals to 2, right? Which means it's an NFT. Which means the offer, or the first offer to be specific, is an NFT. Now there are a lot of edge cases here. For example, the trade situation, right, where they are trading NFTs, not just buying at a specific currency price. This logic doesn't hold, but I'm just gonna do this because we're looking at minimum viable query. Okay, so that's fulfilled by. Let's just run the query and verify that we indeed pull a buying listing. Okay, let's see. So the offer is 1, the item type is 2, which means it's an ASM to 1. And yeah, this looks right. Okay, so I'm gonna call, so now how do we proceed? Now we know the offer represents the NFT that is being sold. What about the consideration? Now the consideration is then the amount of ETH that the seller is willing to take in exchange for their offer, which in this case is exchange for their USDC to 1. And so these are the amount of ETH that is being sent to the seller, that's being sent as platform fees, that's being sent as royalty fees. So how do we know like what is the total price? Well, we will just sum up everything, right? So how we can do this is we sort of split this city into two. One is we look at only consideration, and the other we look at only the offer. So I think let's first look at the consideration. So I'm gonna say fulfilled by consideration as select from fulfilled by where decoder log, flatten the decoder log consideration. Okay, and run the query. Now maybe I can start to be specific here as to what information I want to pull. Now all these are like the standard stuff: transaction hash, event index, load timestamp, and then maybe I want my stuff to be in front. So offer item type, and then we have index and value, which is from the flatten. Right, yeah, we can just extract that straight away. It has a value amount, as amount, value identifier, sure, identifier, value item type, value recipient. Okay, something like this, right? Yeah, something like this. And if we want to be like, if we don't really care about the individual, hang on, I lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Okay, if we don't care about like how much amount goes to the royalty recipient, the platform fee recipient, we can just sum all the amount here, right? So technically, I can just take this whole city and say like I just sum the amount and tell me the token address, right? I can do that as well. So maybe just call this as like fulfilled by, by amount, right? And I want to specify by transaction hash, event index, maybe even token, right? Payment token. And then sum amount as total amount raw group by all. And now if I do this, I should get the sum of log timestamp. Oh, there's no timestamp here. Okay. I should get the total amount of ETH sent, which is 17989. Let's see if that is true. Oh, there you go, 17989. So this matches exactly this amount of ETH that is sent from the buyer. Okay. And now we have our amount. We have to join it back with our NFT. And so the NFT would be the same as consideration, but it would be the NFT itself. So let's see, this is the offer, and this will be offer. So item type identifier is token ID. Token would be the NFT address, right? The token, the contract address. Recipient is who received the NFT. So this will be the buyer address. And then item type would tell us whether it's an ERC 10-1. Right, so maybe I can just say like if item type equals to 2, then ERC 7-1, else ERC 1155 as token standard. Now this is not complete. Obviously, I believe it's like 5 as well, but we'll just use 2 for now. And I think that's it. Let me just query this, see what we get. Unexpected select 50 something. Fulfilled by as is select fulfilled by of, oh, there's 2 commas. Okay, there you go. So this should tell us the NFTs. And it should only be 1 row, but this is another point why you should look at transactions where there can be more than 1 row, like multiple sales in a specific event. We have not encountered that example yet, but I believe there is that example catered for as well. So yeah, so we get the NFT related information, and now we can sort of join this with our buy amount information and get the full picture, right? What is the payment token, what is the total amount paid, stuff like that. Okay, so we have buyer address. Do we have seller address somewhere? Seller address would be the offerer. Oh, okay, the offerer is the seller address. Okay, cool. So I'm just gonna say offerer as seller address. So now I'm ready to join, right? Select from this, join this using transaction hash and also event index. And what am I joining? I am joining, let's see, I kind of want most of this. NFT address, seller address, oops, buyer address, token standard, item type no need, I guess. I'll just leave it there. Token ID, yes. Amount, not really needed. Then I need my payment token and also total amount raw. So yeah, I think that's good. That looks good. So we have our buyer address, seller address, NFT. Oops. Let's see what's wrong here. Select from comma. Unexpected value, line 67. Comma, select from fulfilled by amount, join this using this, okay. So, oh, forgot another comma. Expected value, line 67, so that means it is 91. Oh, okay. I forgot another comma. Okay, I think we should be good. So we have our buyer address, seller address, NFT address, token ID, token standard, payment token, total price paid basically, and then transaction hash and event index. And up until now, this is only the first case, which is the fulfilled buy, right? Which is the buyer buying an existing listing. We have not yet done fulfill of offer accepted. So yeah, so just imagine this is just this. It takes this much of logic just to accommodate that first case example. But let's try to review. Okay, so buyer address is null. Let's see why is that the case. Is that not the same? Value recipient. So to troubleshoot this, I'm gonna add a value here so I can see what the value looks like. Okay, let's see. Amount identifier item type token. Okay, I see what's happening. So in the offer tuple, there is no recipient. There is only amount identifier item type and token, and then in consideration there is the recipient field. So how do we get the buyer address? The buyer address would appear where? So this is null. So I kind of need to know what is my full query, full decoder log. So let's pull that in here. And then pull it in through here. And then finally here. Okay, so let's run a query. So this is how you troubleshoot stuff, right? You sort of go back to the root and try to find where can you find things. And so buyer address would be this ABC address. And let's try to look for it. Oh, it's here, recipient, offerer and recipient. Okay, so it is all the way up front, which is good. So that means I can just copy this and then put it like here, recipient, and call this as like recipient. And then let's pull it through. So I believe it is here. Is there a recipient here? Nope. Oh, we have an offerer. So offerer, recipient, and then recipient here would be buyer address. And the buy offer, yeah, I think that's it. Now I can run the query and I should get the buyer address. So looks like in the decoded log itself, there's an offerer and recipient value, and so we can use that to, and based on the logic of the offer tuple, we can know who is the offerer. Does it represent the seller or the buyer? And then we'll just apply the opposite logic onto recipient. So buyer address ABCD, which is correct, right? ABCD is the buyer, and the seller is EA0. And if the address is this, token ID is 3018, which is matches Etherscan. And then payment token is bunch of zeros, which means it's ETH, and total amount is this needs to be converted to decimals, but this also matches what we see on Etherscan. So yeah, that's just like a very small part of Opensea, but hopefully this gives you a overview and maybe like the thought process behind decoding, I guess, Opensea sales transactions. So it's most likely I'll do more parts to this, and I think that's it. Stay tuned for those. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.